I covered all my family's expenses, but my parents always favored my sister. On my birthday, they gave me a gift card and handed her the keys to my old apartment. She deserves a fresh start, my dad said. 3 months later, they asked if I'd host her baby shower in my condo, the one I bought alone. I don't know how to explain what it feels like to always be the one holding the rope for everyone else, only to realize one day that they've used that rope to climb over you. I've paid off my parents' debts. I've covered utilities when my sister forgot to pay hers. I even took a personal loan to help replace their broken HVAC unit during a difficult Carolina summer, thinking, this is what family does for each other. But family doesn't always return the favor. Sometimes they just take until you start wondering if it's even love or just expectation disguised as gratitude. The final straw came wrapped in a plastic grocery bag. My 38th birthday, and my parents handed me a $50 Target gift card like they were doing me a favor. I smiled, even then, because that's what I'd been trained to do. But then, right in front of me, they handed my younger sister Fiona the keys to my old apartment. The one I had leased and lovingly furnished for 5 years before I bought my condo in Charlotte. I'd told them I was giving it up to save money, and somehow, in their minds, that meant it should go to Fiona. She deserves a fresh start, my dad had said. And my mother, nodding along like I wasn't even in the room, added, it just makes sense. She's struggling. You're doing great, honey. That phrase, you're doing great, it's what they've always said right before justifying why I should shoulder one more thing, give up one more piece of myself. 3 months later, they called me again. Not to apologize. Not to thank me. But to ask if they could host Fiona's baby shower in my condo. And somehow, that was when everything inside me snapped. I didn't say no. Not right away. I told my mom I'd think about it. Then I stood in my kitchen for a long time, holding the phone long after the call ended, just staring out the window like I was waiting for some version of myself to reappear. The truth was, I didn't recognize myself anymore. I'd become so used to keeping the peace, to smoothing things over, to fixing what other people broke, that somewhere along the way I forgot I had boundaries. That I was allowed to be angry. I poured a glass of wine, sat down at my computer, and opened a blank document. I titled it, Everything I've Done for This Family. I started listing things. $7,200 to help pay off mom and dad's back taxes in 2019, $3,000 for Fiona's failed business idea, the Etsy shop that never launched, $1,500 to co-sign her lease, the first one she defaulted on, $800 per month for a year when dad was between jobs, countless weekends of free babysitting, errands, airport runs, and emotional support. The list kept growing. I was at over $30,000 in direct support alone. And that didn't include emotional labor, which is somehow harder to calculate but even heavier to carry. And here they were, asking for one more thing, the space I fought for, the one I bought alone after years of hustling and saving and saying no to myself. I stared at the document for hours. Then I decided, I was done being their cushion. I called Fiona first. She sounded breathless and cheerful. Hey. I heard you might be hosting the shower. Mom said you have this gorgeous open layout and a balcony, and I'm not hosting it. There was a long pause on the line. Oh. Okay. Are you busy that weekend? No, I said simply. I'm just not doing it. More silence. Right. I mean, it's your place, of course, I just thought since you always. I know, I cut in. You thought I'd say yes. Like I always do. She didn't say anything. And in that silence, I realized she wasn't shocked. She was just waiting for me to change my mind. I didn't. When I told my parents, the reaction was swift. My mother sounded more disappointed than angry, which somehow cut deeper. Sweetheart, this isn't like you. That was the point. Dad got on the phone next. It's just one afternoon. You're being a little dramatic, don't you think? No, I said calmly. I think giving away my apartment without telling me was dramatic. This is just a boundary. Your sister's pregnant. She's vulnerable. And I was alone and broke when I paid off your debt, I snapped. No one threw me a shower for that. He went quiet. I could tell he hadn't expected me to say that. He'd expected a fight or a sigh or even a guilt-ridden compromise. What he got was resolved. They tried to guilt me. Mom sent a long email with the subject line, "Family means showing up." She listed every time I'd been helped, most of which were normal things any parent would do: a ride to a job interview when I was 20, watching my dog once while I was on a work trip. Fiona texted a few days later, "I didn't ask for special treatment, Nadine. They offered. I thought you were okay with it." I didn't reply. Because I had been okay with it. 4 years. That was the problem. I'd trained them to think I didn't mind. That giving was just my nature. But it wasn't nature. It was a survival strategy. If I didn't give, I wasn't seen. If I didn't show up, I wasn't valued. Now I was testing what happened when I stopped showing up. Spoiler, they didn't handle it well. A week before the baby shower, Mom called again. "We'll just host it at the community center," she said. "It's a little cramped, but we'll manage." I could hear the performance in her voice. The noble martyr act. I was supposed to feel guilty. Instead, I felt calm. I looked around at my quiet condo, the high ceilings, the soft afternoon light spilling across the rug. I thought about how hard I'd worked for this piece. "You do that," I said. "Let me know if you need a donation for the rental fee." That threw her off. "So, you'll contribute?" "No," I said. "I'm offering because it seems like you're struggling." That's different from being expected to sacrifice. Another long pause. Then, softly, "You've changed." And finally, I smiled. "I know." The baby shower came and went without me. They held it in the event room of the Hillsborough Community Center, the same one where they used to host church fundraisers and HOA meetings. From the photos on Facebook, yes, of course I looked, there were pastel decorations taped haphazardly to the beige-paneled walls, a modest cake from a local bakery, and a folding table weighed down with plastic-wrapped presents. Fiona smiled in every photo. So did my mom. But something in their eyes felt tight, almost rehearsed. Like they were posing hard enough to fill in the blank space my absence left. I didn't comment, didn't like the post, didn't text. That silence felt louder than anything I could have said. I wasn't punishing anyone. I just didn't want to pretend anymore. What they didn't know was that I'd spent that same afternoon surrounded by women I admired, not because I needed to prove anything, but because it reminded me who I was outside the framework of the reliable daughter. A few months back, I had joined a group called She Plans, a circle of professional women in Charlotte who met once a month to talk about finances, career goals, and personal growth. That weekend, we were hosting a goal-setting brunch in the South End. I bought scones. I laughed. I cried, a little, when I talked about how hard it is to break free from your role in a family, even when you know that role is suffocating you. One woman, Jaya, an architect originally from New Jersey, listened so intently I felt like she was reading between my words. When I told her about the gift card and the apartment key incident, her lips tightened into a line. "That's theft of emotional bandwidth," she said. "Not just money. They've been living off your emotional labor for decades." The phrase stuck with me, emotional bandwidth. Because that was exactly it. I wasn't just tired financially. I was drained in ways I couldn't name until someone else gave me language for it. Fiona finally called 2 days after the baby shower. I let it go to voicemail. Her message was clipped. "Hey, just checking in. I know things have been weird. I missed you at the shower. I hope you're okay. I hope we can talk soon." I didn't return the call right away. I wanted to, but there was a part of me that still felt raw. Not angry, just porous. Like I'd finally taken the bandage off and wasn't ready for even a gentle touch. Instead, I started talking to a therapist. I'd resisted it for years mostly because I thought I was managing just fine. But there's something liberating about saying out loud, I don't think I was treated fairly, and having someone nod and say, you weren't. Every week, we unpacked layers I hadn't even realized I was carrying. How I became the parent in my family by age 15. How I felt ashamed for wanting recognition. How every time I said no, it felt like betrayal. How I was always expected to clean up without making a mess of my own. It was exhausting. But also, clarifying. One Sunday, about a month after the shower, I drove to my parents' house unannounced. It had been gnawing at me, not guilt, exactly, but a need to see them without obligation, without a request hanging between us. I wanted to look them in the eyes and not feel like I owed anything. Mom opened the door, startled. Nadine? I just nodded. I had a free Sunday. The house was the same. The scent of furniture polish, the ticking of that old clock in the hallway, the gentle hum of the fridge like background music from childhood. But I felt different walking in. Taller, somehow. Dad was on the couch reading. He looked up and blinked as if trying to decode my presence. I didn't hug them. Just sat on the recliner. How's the baby? She's good, Mom said cautiously. Fiona's tired, but managing. I nodded. They waited for me to say more. Maybe even apologize. But I didn't. Instead, I said, I wanted to check in. That's all. Dad cleared his throat. Well, that's nice. The silence that followed was dense. Not hostile, just uncomfortable in the way only long-time silence between people who should know each other better can be. I've been thinking a lot, Mom said finally, folding her hands in her lap. About what you said. About boundaries. I looked at her. I guess I didn't realize how much we leaned on you, she continued. Maybe we didn't ask the right way. Or maybe we didn't ask at all. I didn't jump in to save her from the awkwardness. I just let her sit in it. She exhaled. I'm sorry. 3 words. Soft. Careful. But real. We didn't hash it all out. That wasn't the point of that visit. I stayed for tea. We made small talk. I listened when they told me about the neighbors, about their plans to maybe downsize, about the repairs needed in the guest bathroom. And then I left. Not with sadness, but with a sense of shift. Like something was finally unspooling. Not fixed, but moving. Later that night, Fiona texted again. Fiona, Mom said you visited. That means a lot. I want to talk, if you're up for it. No expectations. Just, sister to sister. I stared at the message for a while. Then I typed, maybe. Soon. Because sometimes healing isn't a lightning bolt. Sometimes it's a doorway you open just a crack, testing the air. The text from Fiona sat unread for a full week. Not because I was angry, but because I was tired. Not physically, I'd been sleeping better than I had in years, but emotionally, spiritually, deeply tired of being the one who had to make the first move, who had to carry the weight of what needed to be repaired. But the thing about healing is that it doesn't always look like grand gestures. Sometimes it's just about answering when you're ready, and not a moment before. So I finally texted her back, I'm open to a conversation. I think we both have things to say. But I don't want it to be about blame. Just the truth. She replied instantly. Fiona, yes. Truth is good. Just talk, no judgment. I'd really like that. We met at a small cafe halfway between Charlotte and Durham, a quiet little spot off I-85, tucked behind a row of trees, where the coffee tasted like someone still cared about beans and not just branding. I chose it deliberately. Neutral ground. No one's city. No one's territory. She arrived before me. Sat at a corner table, arms wrapped around herself like she wasn't sure what to do with her own skin. Her hair was pulled into a messy bun, and she wore a soft gray hoodie stretched tight over her post-pregnancy frame. When I walked in, she stood, uncertain. We didn't hug. I wasn't sure you'd come, she said. I wasn't sure either, I admitted. We ordered coffee, mine black, hers with oat milk and too much cinnamon, and sat in silence for a minute. Then she took a deep breath. I didn't ask them for the apartment, she said. I didn't know they hadn't told you. I believe you, I said. And I did. But you accepted it anyway. Her lips pressed into a line. Yeah. I did. And I think a part of me knew. Not consciously. But I knew it wasn't really theirs to give. She looked up at me, eyes glossy. I've been handed things my whole life, Nadine. And I let it happen. I let them fix things for me, even when it meant taking from you. Because it was easy. Because they made it easy. I sipped my coffee, letting the bitterness ground me. And you never thought to ask why they always made it easy for you and not for me? She flinched. I did. I do now. But I think I liked it too much to question it. We both went quiet again. There was no use pretending that hurt didn't run deep, that old betrayals hadn't etched themselves into the shape of our relationship. Finally, I asked, do you even remember my 30th birthday? She looked confused for a second, then winced. That was the year Mom and Dad couldn't come to dinner, right? And I forgot to call? You were supposed to come, I said. You RSVP'd. You bailed last minute to go to the beach with someone you just started dating. Oh, she said softly. Right. I'm sorry. It wasn't just the gift card this year, I said. It's been years of being invisible unless I'm doing something for someone. She nodded, biting her lip. You were always the one who had it together. I guess. I leaned on that too much. I didn't have it together, I said, staring into my cup. I just never had permission to fall apart. That landed. I saw it hit her in the way her shoulders dropped, in how she folded her hands and looked down, like the weight of it had finally become hers to carry, too. We talked for nearly 2 hours. About our parents. About childhood. About the way small patterns become lifelong expectations. She told me about how overwhelmed she was with the baby, how hard it was to realize that even now, she didn't really know how to stand on her own. I envy you, she said, quietly. Not your money. Or your condo. But the way you know who you are. I don't think I've ever had that. I didn't know what to say to that. It was the closest she'd come to a compliment in years. I've been trying to figure it out, I told her. Where the line is between helping and losing yourself. I think I crossed it a long time ago. She nodded. I want to do better. I don't expect you to fix anything. I just want to start showing up, too. It wasn't a resolution. Not yet. But it felt like the first step toward one. We walked out into the parking lot together. The sky was overcast, that soft Carolina gray that blankets everything in quiet. We stood by our cars, hers with a car seat, mine with a yoga mat rolled in the back, and she turned to me. Do you want to meet her sometime? She asked. The baby. Her name's Margot. I looked at her, this woman who had once been the center of everything our parents gave and sacrificed for, and for the first time in years, she looked small. Not in a pathetic way, but in a way that was vulnerable, open. Maybe, I said. But not yet. She nodded. Okay. When you're ready. Then she got into her car and drove off, and I stood there a little longer than I needed to, letting the air clear. Because this wasn't just about her. Or our parents. Or even the past. It was about me, finally giving myself permission to make space for what I needed and deciding when, or if, anyone else got to step back into that space. It took me almost 5 more months to meet the baby. Fiona didn't push. She sent a few photos here and there, soft, simple ones. No captions, no expectations. Just a quiet hello in the form of a chubby hand, a squint, a smile, a bonnet tied crookedly under a tiny chin. I didn't reply, but I didn't block her either. I was learning to sit with discomfort. To let wounds breathe instead of rushing to cover them up with apologies or compromises. My therapist called it emotional neutrality, the space between anger and forgiveness. A place where you're no longer bleeding, but not yet healed. A resting ground, not a finish line. In that time, I invested in myself in ways I never had before. I started a side business, financial consulting for women going through divorce. It felt oddly poetic, helping women reclaim control over money after spending so long giving mine away. I also took a solo trip to Sedona, where I hiked for hours in the rust-colored canyons, ate too many granola bars, and cried big, gulping, full-body tears on a rock in the middle of nowhere, not because I was sad, but because I had never before given myself permission to feel everything all at once. It was there, with the Arizona sun on my face and silence all around me, that I realized I didn't need anyone's apology to move forward. Closure wasn't a gift. It was a door I had to build myself. When I finally visited Fiona, it was on my terms. A short visit. No extended invites. No family dinners. Just me, her, and baby Margot on a rainy Saturday afternoon. Her apartment, the one that used to be mine, looked different. Brighter, somehow. She'd painted the walls a soft sage green. There were toys tucked into woven baskets, a baby swing in the corner, a stroller parked by the door. She looked tired, but peaceful. She smiled when I stepped in, a little hesitant, like she wasn't sure if I'd change my mind and leave. "I'm glad you came," she said softly. I just nodded. Margot was napping in the bassinet. Fiona motioned toward her. "She's small, but loud. Just like me, I guess." I laughed. "Not a big one. But real." She handed me a mug of tea. I took it. We sat on the couch, sipping in silence for a while, watching the rain streak down the window pane. Then she said it. "I asked them to stop leaning on you. I told Mom and Dad everything that I knew wasn't fair. That I needed to stop expecting you to carry the weight." I turned to her. "They didn't like hearing it," she continued. "But I said it anyway. Because I wanted you to know I see it now. All of it. What you gave. What it cost." For a second, I didn't know what to do with that. I'd imagined this moment so many times, the reckoning, the acknowledgement, and now that it was here, it didn't feel dramatic. It felt quiet. Steady. "I don't need them to understand," I said. "Not anymore." "But I wanted to," she said. "Because I miss you. Not the version of you who fixes things. Just you." And that felt like the truest thing she'd said in years. A few weeks later, I had dinner at my parents' house. No big announcements. No banners. Just a quiet evening with baked salmon, green beans, and iced tea in mismatched glasses. They were awkward at first. Polite. Careful. I could feel the shift, the way they were trying, in their own clumsy way, to reset something without knowing quite how. My father asked about work. My mother complimented my earrings. No one asked for anything. It was strange. But not unpleasant. After dinner, as I was leaving, my mother walked me to the door and pressed a small envelope into my hand. Inside was a check. Not large, $500. With a note in her handwriting that said, "For all the times we forgot to say thank you." I didn't cash it. I didn't rip it up either. I left it in a drawer. Because it wasn't about the money. It was about the shift. The revenge, if you can call it that, didn't come with drama or confrontation. It came with space. Space between who I was expected to be and who I chose to become. Space between obligation and choice. Between silence and voice. And that space became my freedom. Now, when they call, I answer. Sometimes. Not always. But I no longer feel that tightness in my chest, that dread in my stomach, the sense that I owe them something just for being me. Fiona sends me photos of Margot every week now. I smile when I see them. I even framed one of the babies, wrapped in a yellow knit blanket, eyes closed in the softest sleep, and put it on my bookshelf. Not because I've forgotten everything, but because I've finally let go of needing it to have been different. And that, more than anything, is the ending I never knew I was allowed to have.